We are doing some serious cooking today, and I think in the good way, not in the "oh god, everything is burning" way. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and our list today comes from Discord from the CEO of IKEA. Great job with those hot dogs, by the way. Now, this is a very intriguing list that is built around the Council of Reeds, which was a card I had not seen before this donation came in. So, the legend rule doesn't apply to creatures you control. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast a non-creature spell this turn, create a token that's a copy of Council of Reeds. So, on turn 1, you can do something like Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, Council of Reeds, play a Bauble, and then you have 2 of these on your first turn. And then you cast any artifact on your second turn. Well, any non-creature artifact anyway. And then all of a sudden, you have 4 of them. So they're going to build up very, very quickly. And it allows you to do some rather silly things like have multiple copies of Emry, Lurker of the Loch in play to continue fueling them. The deck has a couple of angles that it's taking. It can just do Urza Saga Beatdown. It can attempt to be a little bit of a stacks deck and potentially then clone those stacks pieces. You can just dump a bunch of artifacts into play and then go the Nettle Cyst route. It is very, very intriguing in terms of deck building. And there's a little bit of spice here and there in the list, such as the Horn of Gondor. When it enters, you make a 1/1 human, and you can pay 3 mana to create X 1/1 human soldier tokens, where X is the number of humans you control. So with the Council of Reeds, that can, in theory, get rather silly. This is a deck that I really, really want to be successful, because I think the brewing here is really cool. I want to spend a little bit of time doing some goldfishing and some tuning prior to the league starting. This is something that the CEO of IKEA has worked on for a little while. This is version 3.0, so this is not just fully untuned. But at a glance, I don't think there's enough starting blue sources here. So in the lands themselves, there's only 6. I kind of want at least 2 more there. So I'm kind of thinking, do I end up cutting some City of Traders for more blue sources? Like, how reliable are things like Mox Opal and Lotus Petal going to be at getting these into play immediately? So I want to put a little work into this before it gets started. There's also a spicy Phyrexian Dreadnought consigned to memory sideboard, sort of juke, and a ton of respect for the Fantastic art in particular. So if you want to, use the timestamps down below to just jump to the finished deck list. And if you find that you like this deck and you need your copies of Nettle Cyst because you didn't buy it before when I was doing crazy things with it, consider getting it from my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. I placed an order with them yesterday to update all of my commander decks. I do that pretty much once every set release. Got only a handful of cards from the new Marvel set that were really intriguing to me, but then I also picked up a handful of things that had slipped through the cracks elsewhere. Use my promo code ThrabenU to save a bit on your order. Let's do a little goldfishing and tuning before we kick off today. All right, so I would keep this first hand because because it does something silly immediately, right? So on turn 1, I just play the Council of Reeds. I play a Bauble. I sack the Bauble, which will draw me a card. When I go to combat, I get another one of these immediately, and then I would draw 2 cards. And then we start to kind of get into a little bit of the anti-synergy with some of the Thorn Bauble stuff. So I think I would kind of be hoping that this just goes all the way. Let's imagine that I need to play the Thorn of Amethyst to keep my opponent off balance. We do run into like the double colorless land situation here. I can play Bauble to clone those up, cycle my Bauble. I find a Nettle Cyst. I would hit in for 4 immediately, and then I just kind of hope to draw another land to continue this going. And I would not be able to cast further spells from here because of the Thorn of Amethyst. So 2 points of negative synergy immediately. The disappearing City of Traders, the Thorn with cheap spells to keep fueling this. And I guess lack of blue mana as well. But we did something immediately that like probably plays around a spot removal spell on our primary threat, so that's good at the very least. Yeah, this is a hand I would keep. So we would go Lotus Petal, probably Ancient Tomb, into Thorn immediately. Then I can 1-mana Emry. Emry does not find anything exciting there. I imagine at this point, I would ignore my Emry, play out Thorn, and assume that Urza Saga wins me the game. But at this point, the Emry isn't actually doing anything, which is slightly awkward. It perhaps doesn't need to, but the double taxation just kind of shuts off the Emry. We are doing powerful things quickly. Definitely feeling the anti-synergy here. This is like very clearly a hand that I would keep. We get to turn Mox Opal on turn 1. 0 hits for Emry, so I guess I would just be playing out Urza Saga and be trying to do a reasonable Urza Saga game here. So I would probably go bam, 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 make a friend, blue mana, bring back Lotus Petal, play Mox Opal, Legend ruling it. Oh, I need to do life first here. Sack a Lotus Petal, copy a Construct token. This is turn 2. That's rather powerful, even though the Emry kind of whiffed. So it feels to me like the deck building here is... There's negative synergy in my deck, but it doesn't matter because I do something powerful on turn 1 just about every time. The Metalcraft is awkward here for Mox Opal as a starting mana source. Because I can go Ancient Tomb, Opal, Bobble, Council, but then not have anything left over to trigger it. I think in that case, I would just vomit this stuff into play, excluding the Shadow Spear, which I hold to trigger this. I think play this out. 1, 2, 3 artifacts in play. Cycle one of these. There's a Retrofitter Foundry. I would have to play City this turn. I want 3 for the Council and then 2 to play one of these to trigger it. All right. I mean, I think that just is what it is. So there's Council. There's Retrofitter Foundry. I can cycle this. There's an Urza Saga. Council of Reeds does its thing. And I would just transition into an Urza Saga game. So, like, I would Shadow Spear, play Urza Saga. I can, funnel some mana into something like this, or equip a Shadow Spear, make 2 more of these. I mean, it's a little clunky, but we're definitely doing stuff just about every time. I don't know that I like this hand. Like, I could do something like turn 1 Urza Saga, Pithing Needle on Wasteland, turn 2 City of Traders, and just try to solo a game like that. But then I have like 3, 6, kind of 9 mana locked in my hand worth of stuff that I would not be deploying. Let's say that I keep this on the draw and I really get this extra card. So I could take a turn to go like Seat, then City, then some of this stuff. Yeah, I don't like how this looks. I think I'm not going to continue to goldfish that one. I don't know that that's useful. Yeah, this is totally solid. I will say, like, I theoretically quite like these openers where I get to throw down a Thorn on turn 1, control 2 artifacts, and then just play an Emry afterwards. Like, obviously, there's some negative synergy. The Emry stuff is more expensive, but this is pressure on combo opponents, pressure on fair opponents, and this helps to protect the Emry. But then stuff like this happens and is slightly awkward. So, like, I can play Seat. That makes the Mox Opal free. The Mox Opal is on because that was Seat. I then can't play Nettle Cyst immediately, which I would probably make worse by doing Phyrexian Metamorph, paying the life, and this is a creature, so it doesn't get taxed by Thorn, and then I would probably copy my Thorn. All right, well, let's goldfish one more of these. This is a hand where I would just do Nettle Cyst things, right? Yeah, this is a hand where I would just do Nettlecyst things. Let's see how powerful that gets. So I'd go 1, 2, 3 permanents. Opal is now on to play Nettlecyst, and this is immediately a 4/4 that will be much bigger as of my next turn. Okay, this is sort of stupid. So I would play a Thorn. This is up to a 5/5. I would pay for the tax for Thorn. This is up to a 6/6. So on turn 2, I am attacking for 6 while having double Thorn in play. All right, I think I can do a little tuning here, but I think the core of what's here is solid. So let's do a little tune-up and then jump directly into a match, or rather an entire league. I think the first thing I want to do is cut Retrofitter Foundry. I view current Legacy as incredibly fast, and I think I want Lava Spur Boots in here. I think when I rely on something like Nettlecyst or Urza Saga to close out the game, I just want to have the haste. Maybe it's Skateboard, actually. Let's do Skateboard. Next up, I think I want to get rid of Horn of Gondor. I think it's bananas if we have a Council of Reeds, but shouldn't a Council of Reeds bury a fair deck anyway? I think I just want to turn this into a different artifact of some kind that has an offensive slant. Something like a Patchwork Automaton, for example. Based on the limited number of games that I goldfished there, it kind of seemed like I am already investing my mana into spells, especially if my 0-drops become more expensive due to Thorn. It is possible that I should just take the 2 Phyrexian Metamorphs that are here and turn them into Patchwork Automaton. And that makes the City of Traders and Ancient Tombs that are in the deck much, much more consistent. And we just try to lower the curve on this one. This gives up Metamorph being able to be additional copies of Thorn that I can find off of an Emry, and this gives up just copying something like a Nettlecyst for an extra body. Metamorph also can do some things like copy an opposing Bowmaster. That's kind of neat. I think they should just be Patchwork Automatons. I don't just want to cut the spice here, but I think if the deck is trying to shove something really strong on turn 1 or turn 2, Metamorph doesn't necessarily play into that. Metamorph is good later. I think I like this. The other thing I think I could do here is just cut something like a Patchwork Automaton for a copy or 2 of Sink into Stupor. The deck is a little light on blue sources. Cutting Metamorph is kind of like eliminating some blue from the deck if you squint at it funny, but I think you're paying life for that most of the time. I could also move Shadow Spear to this sideboard. I don't know. How does a fair deck beat me connecting with a Shadow Speared Nettlecyst in game 1? It's just an ungodly amount of life. Another thing I can do here is play a couple copies of Pinnacle Emissary, and those are extremely synergistic with Nettlecyst, but that would probably make me have to add more blue sources into the deck than what's already here, because I don't want to use like things like Mox Opal, Mox Amber, Lotus Petal to help fuel those out. Okay, I think I'm then going to cut 1 City of Traders for a Sink into Stupor. This build is not having to worry about a Force of Will count or anything, but having a generic out to something weird like an Ensnaring Bridge that otherwise we can't beat seems important. And just 1 more blue source to help make Council of Reeds happen early feels reasonable. Like, the dream is make Council of Reeds happen off Ancient Tomb Lotus Petal, but other times where I'm going to have to rely on like getting Metalcraft with Mox Opal, if I'm trying to fire Council of Reeds on turn 1, it might just be nice to have 1 more blue source. So turn 1 is Ancient Tomb, Thorn of Amethyst. Turn 2 is blue source, Council of Reeds. I guess at that point I'm also not triggering it immediately. Regardless, I think I still like 1 more blue source in the deck. Let's think about the sideboard now. I think it needs some work. And a big problem here is that this deck wants to tap out for 3 mana cards, but in post-sideboard configurations, it's also trying to hold open a bunch of mana. I don't think we get to play this many things that I need to hold up, but we don't have a high enough blue count, I think, even if we added in something like a couple more Sink into Stupors or Pinnacle Emissaries or other blue cards to make Counter Magic great and It's also very awkward to try to be the counter magic Thorn deck, right? Like, if this is something you are doing to fight the Fantasticar, you now need to hold open 3 mana if you want to have the Hurkyl's Recall protection. And maybe that becomes less necessary with a Thorn in play, but I very much remember posting on social media about getting killed through either a Thorn or Sphere with the Fantasticar. Another thing is that we're just fully soft to something like a Collector Oof. It shuts down so much of our mana, and also shuts things like Nettle Cyst re-equips. So I think I want a couple of Dismembers in here as a starting point. And the deck is also going to need to have 4 generic cards that I can board in for matchups where Thorn of Amethyst isn't good, and it currently just frankly does not have that. So I suspect that the very cute Phyrexian Dreadnought plan needs to just get cut for the generic cards that we are going to need to answer stuff. Because I suspect we're going to want something like 2 Dismembers. I think I'm okay trying to keep the playset of Consigns. We probably need to go down on the Hurkyl's stuff. It's not crazy to sideboard our own Fantasticars with 19 zero-cost artifacts, maybe more in some post-board configurations. I don't know that I want an entire playset or anything, but I'm going to throw a couple of those in there as placeholders. I now have to think about how to use the last couple of slots. I could do something like Loki to have another generic thing that I can board in when Thorn is bad. If Thorn is bad, I can probably go 2 Fantasticar, 2 Dismember in, or 2 Fantasticar, 1 Tormod's Crypt, 1 Defense Grid in, or something like that, and have generic slots. So it may be that I want some Sphere of Resistance style card that can muck up a combo deck early. Thorn is particularly good here, though, because it still lets me, Emry for 1 mana afterwards. I could go up on Tormod's Crypt and help cover Reanimator specifically. I could do something generic like Disruptor Flute that I would never hate having. Alright, I don't hate Disruptor Flute as the thing to round out the sideboard here. Alright, I think I am now happy with this. Let's try to get some Council of REEDS kills today. Let's battle. Whoa, this hand kind of slaps. Ancient Tomb, Patchwork, Petal, Immediate Thorn. Yeah. I mean, obviously I wish I was on the play, but that's pretty much always going to be true in Legacy, right? Okay. I'm going to get my turn to attempt to do my busted thing. That's great. And another land as well. I'll take it. We are going to have a very fast threat here, and Thorn of Amethyst gets to throw my opponent off of Planar Nexus plus Urza's Tower, being able to cast the One Ring and Karn immediately. So on turn 1, I have produced a 4/4 threat and a stacks piece. This is rather good. CEO of IKEA, this is very good proof of concept. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So now my opponent does not get to do the One Ring or Karn this turn, giving me a turn to bash face. I'll play Island over Seat in case I do get Karned in a minute. So here is 2 mana for a Skateboard. I'll tap a land here. I'm not super expecting my opponent to do anything with this mana, although they could Kozilek's Command, I suppose. But it's not a Kozilek's Command that's going to get around my ward here. Yeah, so this is turn 2, and I am attacking for 6. This is great. So now we just have to see whether or not my opponent does something that is broken enough that it doesn't matter that I had a start this good. All right, that is a Kozilek's Command for X equals 3. I don't have Trample here. Shadow Spear would be kind of a sick draw. 1 top, 2 bottom there. That is a Seat instead. So I guess we're now kind of awkwardly cycling this Spell Bomb. I don't think I am using that to get rid of exactly 1 spawn. All right, Saga is cool. Saga represents a lot of haste damage with Skateboard, and Saga also represents Trample a couple turns down the line as well. A boon here is that we are a largely colorless deck, so my opponent's Ugins don't get to just nuke all of my stuff innately. Oh, Absolutely wrecked by Petrified Hamlet there. Flex slot land gets us so hard. Alright, so this is a Kozilek's command for 2 that my opponent is going to pay the ward on. So my opponent has cleared the board and shut off my Urza Saga in the same turn cycle. I expect, despite this incredible opener, that I am now dead. What are you doing for 3 mana? Because there's still a Thorn in play. The answer is nothing. No! And now this doesn't have all of our fun abilities. It just taps for colorless in 2 different ways. That's a Karn, which has shut off my seat. And it should get something that can't be Pithing Needled. Yeah. I can Pithing Needle the Karn. Lattice just stops everything next turn. And we do get to confirm that my opponent is a blue-based version of the deck. Oh god, they just get to Lattice immediately. Through Thorn. Ugh. We can go ahead and concede there. GG's. Consign is incredible here. Disruptor Flute is fine. I have to decide where I fall on Thorn of Amethyst, because it very specifically knocks my opponent off of good turn 2 and turn 3 lines, but my opponent totally just ends up overpowering this as the game goes on. It may be a play-draw thing where on the play I still do it, and on the draw I don't. Probably get rid of Spellbomb here. Trample of Shadow Spear is relevant. Tormod's Crypt, not so much relevant. I think if I'm going to bring in some number of Consigns and or Hurkles, I cut Thorns. Then it starts getting a little tough. I think I'm going to trim the situational Mox Ambers and do Hurkles. I think I'm okay with this. I could board in the Fantastic R as well, rationalizing that doing that immediately is rather strong. Alright. I am going to keep this hand. I think it's turn 1, Patchwork Pass, turn 2, Patchwork Opal. That holds open Consign for a turn, and then I can look at the Council of Reeds after that. Opponent is mulliganing to 5 here. So, Patchwork down, last turn, Tower into map. Sure. It's another Council of Reeds. Our permanents are going to go kind of wild, assuming that the game continues for a while. I will Mox Opal. We're going to intentionally skip our land drop this turn. Smash in for 3. Now, on my next turn, I can play Seat and still use Mox Opal to hold open Consign. Alright, looks like my opponent is just going to fetch with Expedition Map here. Would not mind a 0-cost artifact as a draw. Ooh. Since I can't trigger Council of Reeds immediately, I think it is correct to just play Patchwork Automaton in for 7. Opponent is at 10. If I draw an artifact, I just have lethal. 4, 7, 8 already showing. So there is the mine. My opponent will have actual factual Tron, and then hopefully my Consign just resolves and answers their One Ring or whatever nonsense is coming. Yep. Not have mana to replicate it. That didn't matter. Hopefully there's not a second one. My opponent does still have 4 mana. That is a Kozilek's command, so that my opponent can make some blockers to survive. Yeah, I mean, that Kozilek's command is going to save my opponent 7-ish life. That is rather good. And my opponent topped a card, and they're not looking for too many things, so that's probably quite bad for me. Alright. So, here is the Council of Reeds. I will do Mox Opal, which will trigger all 4 of these. So, I get my other Reed, and I'm probably getting 2 points of damage this turn, assuming that both of these are getting blocked. And that is accurate. So it becomes harder to block my nonsense from here. Damn it. I'll get you as soon as I get an attack step. The issue is that if my opponent can do something else, like get an ensnaring bridge or whatever, using the time from the One Ring, they're just going to get another tower. Seems great. They have so much mana. Mana plus card draw equals good, right? Yeah, I mean, the legend rule doesn't apply. I guess I'm only playing Skateboard if this resolves. Yeah, I don't need to worry about days or anything like that from this deck. Yeah, I don't think I'd turn down making this many extra bodies. Trigger, 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 trigger. Tap down Urza's tower. My opponent gets Fog this turn. I do the Council of Reeds thing. There's so many of them. They are ready to attack. My opponent loses 1 to their ring. Draws 2 cards off the 1 ring. 6-card hand. Is Karn and Snaring Bridge going to beat the Council of Reeds? They have a lot of mana, but some of their stuff in their deck is expensive. I don't know how well my opponent can empty out their hand here. That's a Karn. So this is potentially Ensnaring Bridge for 3 mana. At which point my opponent... Oh no, it's another 1 ring. So this buys my opponent another turn. I can kill this Karn in the meantime, which will turn my mana back on. Mine comes down. Oh my god, it's Eldrazi Confluence. Taking out half of my Council of Reeds. This is not currently castable. While my opponent gets the Fog, they don't get the Fog on their Planeswalker. I think I'll just shut off the 1 ring. It's possible Karn for Ensnaring Bridge is my opponent's long-term out, and I should just let them draw cards with the 1 ring. Yeah, I think I am more afraid of losing to Ensnaring Bridge than I am of losing to the 1 ring. And we're just going to do this now. My opponent has shown me blue mana, so I don't want to like wait until a Karn is on the stack and then my opponent has drawn a counterspell to protect it. This also does have a taxation element to it as well. So my opponent has a 7-card grip, and we'll see if they can beat me. They get to look at a lot of cards between the 1 ring and stock up here, and potentially like a Kozilek's Command afterwards. But there's 2 different lethal Patchwork Automatons. The other one is 1 artifact behind it if we count Skateboard, and I have the Council of Reeds that are going to keep trying to go wide of things like Kozilek's Command, pile O blockers. It's another Eldrazi Confluence, sure. It's another 1 ring. Alright. Opponent has used all 4 1 rings now. So this one is there forever. They are at 6. I will play a Bauble. I will equip Skateboard to one of these. Can't target my opponent right now. I can target them on... Actually, because of Consign, I want to target myself so that if Consign is the exact top card of my library, I get to draw Consign. It is Ancient Tomb, though. Opponent to 5. So now any one of these connecting is lethal. Planar Nexus comes down. Big mana. Kozilek's Command for X equals 10. At this point, the 1 ring is my win condition. I can't get through these unless I find Shadow Spear, which I could play and equip immediately. Top 1 card, bottom 9 cards. That does say something about how few outs my opponent is currently on. That's interesting. I don't know how good it is, but it's certainly interesting. 3 Eldrazi spawns down. I think my hope here is that my opponent basically taps all of their mana for another giant Kozilek's Command, and I get to sink into Stupor it back into hand, and then finish them off. I think it's happening. Oh yeah. Blue. Blue and 1. That is a hell of a sink into Stupor, and that will be lethal for any one of these 3 Patchwork Automatons connecting. Oh, come on! That was so cool, though. Alright, my opponent put 2 cards on top, 17 cards on bottom, and then drew with the 1 ring. They have returned the 1 ring to their hand with Otawara, which is very cute. So now they don't have to worry about dying to their own 1 ring. I still have 12 blockers to get through. Donde está El Shadow Spear? Ooh, that's quite good. So blue for Emry. Mill 4. Nothing crazy there, unfortunately. Move Skateboard to Emry. Oh, I fucked up because of Consign. I should have taken 2 to move that. Whoops. I will then cast that Bauble, trigger all of these, sack the Bauble. Oh, opponent's got Fog this turn. So no attack. I now start getting 1 extra card a turn, which is something. My opponent is starting to get into the ballpark of, like, they can realistically time out. I don't know if they have, like, exactly 1 Ugin they're looking for or whatever, but they should have seen the majority of their deck at this point. Urza's mine. Okay, that's an actual factual Emrakul, which I imagine beats me. So, Shadow Spear plus Equip takes a decent amount of mana. Flow states as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I can play towards drawing Shadow Spear and equipping by keeping these 3 permanents. Let's confirm. Shadow Spear is in the deck. The issue is that my opponent almost certainly has Karn the Grit Creator in their hand, right? I think that doesn't matter, and I just have to play towards my out. And if my opponent has the Karn, so be it. This puts me to 3, which still allows me to tap Ancient Tomb. Would have been so fucking sick if it was the Shadow Spear I was playing towards. All right. Opponent gets that one. Notably, if I win this game, my opponent almost assuredly times out at the rate that they were playing. This was a very good game for this deck, though. I am very happy with the initial results here, even if we 0-2'd this round. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I love them. I have over 1,000 deck lists here. And I think the thing that I like the most about them is they're more than just a basic deck builder. If you need information about your next pre-release or where you can get cards, they have that sort of stuff here too. Whether you need to manage your collection or just a couple of decks, Moxfield does it all. So go check them out. All right, I'm going to keep my opening hand here. One thing I was told is that the opening hands with Reed and Emry tend to be better than the opening hands with other stuff. I don't know that... Okay, Doomsday. I don't know that I say no to just turn 1 Nettle Cyst and the ability... Oh, we can do Nettle Cyst on turn 2. Lotus Petal. The Council of Reeds. This is going to end up attacking for about the same amount as a Nettle Cyst. Because assuming this resolves, I cast at least 1 Urza's Bauble and trigger this and have 4 power immediately. Daze happens. I think I don't play Urza's Baubles this turn because I could draw another Council of Reeds next turn. That is unfortunate. That was a very good draw. I can still potentially shove something that has the ability to do a very, very large amount of damage to a Doomsday player, and they set themselves back a land drop in order to do that Daze. Greatness at any cost. My life total be damned. My hand is big butts if this does not resolve, though. So if my opponent has Force of Will and is going to play a fair stock-up game, I'm in trouble. Otherwise, we vomit Baubles into play, and I think do not crack them unless this token dies for some reason. The kind of sad thing here is that my opponent topped a card, which probably means something... Ooh, white mana. They might really be digging in for a flow state game if they have white mana. Something like Erode or Swords to Plowshares immediately comes to mind for why you might splash. Opponent ponders. Notably leaving open black mana to potentially Dark Ritual Doomsday afterwards. A Tamiyo. You've got it. I don't think that's all that bad for me here. Especially if I can just name the Planeswalker side. So here is a Pithing Needle for our Tamiyo Seasoned Scholar. Then I will skateboard and tap that Tamiyo down, get the skateboard equipped, and bash in for 7. We are trying to get better versus past the turn Doomsday lines, but the Tamiyo as a blocker is a bit of a nuisance in that regard. Okay, my opponent does still just attack. Drops a Swamp. Ooh, we are Cephalid Breakfast instead, rather than a Splash Doomsday build. At this point, I could try to cycle all of these and try to find something like Thorn of Amethyst. I think I will. There is Flow State, which my opponent did not cast, probably indicating that they're going to crack that clue. We have looked at a Flow State again. There may or may not be multiples over there. There is a Force of Will, though. All right, little baby Ancestral here. So, probably need to do a thing that causes my opponent to Force of Will. How much is this to equip? 2? I think Emry is the prize here. So here is Nettle Cyst. Ooh, my opponent just let it resolve. Okay. Well, that changes things. Then I just move Skateboard over here with that floating mana. crash in with 2 different bodies and don't play the second thing immediately. I'll do it post-combat still. Petty Theft. Okay. The opponent will take 4, go to 9. They do not Force of Will Emry. And now this is mostly going to be a do I die to the combo on my opponent's turn. I know their exact cards as of right now. And they don't have another land to go flow state into Illusionist guaranteed. Yeah. You can do your Tamiyo thing. Here is the flow state. So land into Illusionist should kill me. There's land. Down to 8. And that is the Illusionist. So if you haven't seen this combo before, my opponent is repeatedly going to use a 0 mana ability to target this and cause my opponent to mill out their entire deck. And they are eventually going to dread return the Thassa's Oracle that was randomly put into their graveyard in the first turn cycle, and then win. So I let them mill themselves just to take a look at their deck to see if there's anything spicy here. We've got Daze and Force of Will that I need to think about. And there was a main deck Barrowgoyf. There were not main deck spot removal spells. There may be them in the sideboard. We had a very strong hand, but just came up a little short there. GG. Notably, when we crack triple Bobble, if we find Tormod's Crypt or Thorn of Amethyst, things get a lot safer for us. All right, I'm good with another Tormod's Crypt. There's a lot of different angles I could take here. Like, I can do Consign for Thassa's Oracle triggers, and that's, like, fine. I can do Disruptor Flute for Tamiyo. Aether Spellbomb is basically good against the Singleton Barrowgoyf, but it is incredibly important if I need to answer that card. I don't know if I'm going to sideboard much here. It feels like the Thorns are good versus the counter magic and the cantrips, and to a much lesser extent, the Dread Returns. I might try to sneak in a couple of Dismembers. I think I'm going to get rid of the Narrow Spellbomb. It's so easy to imagine Shadow Spear being relevant versus like 1/1 chump blockers and Tamiyos on a giant Nettle Cyst. I think I'm going to pull 2 Mox Amber and call that good. Yeah. Opponent is on 6 cards. I will vomit these artifacts into play, cast a 1 mana Emry, and then presumably play Urza Saga. Urza Saga seems fine here. Now, the Tormod's Crypt is intended to be protection versus combo, but we can instead just use it to knock my opponent off of getting 2 cards with a flow state. Opponent ponders. Alright, I have found a Mox Opal, which I think I will cast here. I don't know that I need to hold open, sink into Stupor immediately. I think I am going to go ahead and just put a Shadow Spear into play. These are going to be large Urza Saga tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at minimum. Attacking with haste. Yes, you may Thoughtseize my land. Now the hope is that my opponent doesn't have something too crazy. I will Pithing Needle the shit out of their Marsh Flats, given the opportunity, I think. So these are 7/7s, 8/8s. The attack with haste is really strong. If my opponent has something like a Fatal Push, I think I just Needle the land. So then I play a Bobble. I do a mana with... Oh, no, I shouldn't have done that. Forgot I just got this Bobble. I'm trying to keep artifacts in play. I could have drawn another card with Bobble there, rather than just trying to save the Lotus Petal. It's probably better to just attack than crack. No, if I crack this and equip this, it's the same damage as if the Lotus Petal was in play, and I should just take another card off of the Bobble post-combat. Alright, that was a very strong, aggressive start. Let's try to do that again. I think I'm just going to whack the submit button. That's just a Lotus Petal for mana. That is not going to do it for me. That doesn't work either. That doesn't get to Cassie's Patchwork Automatons. We're going to 5. 5-card hand is incredibly awkward. It will be a keep, but it is incredibly awkward. I think Lotus Petal is always going back. I think I'm going to hedge against Thorn being taken via Thoughtseize or countered, and not keep City. City lets me cleanly curve Thorn into Nettle Cyst. At that point, the Nettle Cyst is a 2/2. I'm not overly excited by that. I don't want to see turn 1 Tameo. Okay, cool. The Nettle Cyst is very weak without the support of a stronger opening hand. I guess a Seat helps slightly, but I'm really not looking for additional mana sources right now. I want more threats. An Emry in particular that could provide a bunch of fuel would be great. And this is exactly what I was talking about in bottoming the City of Traders, by the way. Because now I can still play Nettle Cyst on curve, but I wasn't forced to keep the city that is both a disappearing land and a colorless land. Unfortunately, my opponent gets to, like, flow state here. They're very far ahead on resources, especially after my mulligan. Here's Nettle Cyst. I'll hold Mox Opal for a moment in case I draw the Council of Reeds. I can die as soon as this turn. Do the whole Cephalid Breakfast combo. Starting next turn, I can hold... never mind. Oh, they took my Mox Opal. Alright, City of Traders is not what I am looking for here. They have let me hold open a counterspell, though, which I'm good with. I will just tempo that right on back to your hand. Like, if I can keep you from hitting land drops and making better uses of your resources, I'll take it. I'm at 13. Here we go, Mox Opal. In for 3. I am fully out of gas here, and my deck doesn't have flow states and stock ups and such to refuel. I need an Emry to do that specifically. So there's now that flow state, which my opponent can use to make their land drops. I'm in very, very, very bad shape. And they did hit a land drop. Continue to crash in. I am at 12. Here is a bauble. In for 4. So I did not board in consigns. I have used my 1 Sink into Stupor. I think that means that I don't crack the bauble immediately, but I might end up cracking it during their turn. Individual points of life are relevant here. Okay, now even if this drops to a 3/3, it is still lethal in 2 swings, which probably makes me junk bauble this turn. If I'm not just outright dead. I've used Sink into Stupor. And there's my Aether Spell Bomb. This is a singleton. If I attack for 5, my opponent can just jump block and then, like, Barrow-Goyf me to death. I think I'm going to take a redraw and try to find something stronger. Opponent gets an Oracle if they keep that card. There's an Emry and a Lotus Petal. Emry is a great card. Alright, I didn't get Force of Willed. None of this stuff solves my problems, though. And this Barrow-Goyf just gets to stabilize my opponent's life total. So I might be doing something like blocking with a Nettle Cyst with the intention of moving this somewhere else. I don't think I can let my opponent dig for their combo right now. You're in a really bad spot versus this Barrow-Goyf, and it's a 5/6, so it's also outside of Dismember range. I guess I could find Tormod's Crypt and make it... Fuck! It's not a singleton anymore. I think I'm dead to the second one of those. Well, alright. There's Nettle Cyst. A Force of Will just puts it in graveyard and I can recast it. So Force of Negation would be important. It's resolved. Do you have a consign? Consign is kind of some shit. Yeah. So now I could double suit up Emry. This is so bad. So, like, there's an Emry that now beats one of these in combat, but that means that I can't tap Emry to keep drawing cards. I don't see the obvious out here. That consign just absolutely wrecked me. And notably, if it's just a regular counterspell, it just goes to the graveyard and I recast it, and I'm in an okay spot. But consign specifically puts it into play so that I cannot recast it. So I think... my opponent attacks with 2 Barrow-Goyfs. I lose an Emry. I need them to miss on a relevant creature. Oh. Yikes. I'm just full on... well, okay, I'm not technically dead, but I am taking near lethal damage, and I don't have a source of haste here. Even if I did, my opponent has Nomads in core. I think I am willing to call this one here. My opponent's got this one. We are coming up short, but we are playing good matches of Magic. GG's. All right. Opening hand is pretty aggressive via Patchwork Automaton. So assuming this resolves, I have a decently large ward creature, and I can potentially get a Shadow Spear on it. I don't think I need to cycle the baubles immediately, since I'm not actually a Force of Will deck. I will probably cycle both, because I just want to find more Patchwork Automaton food. Misty Rainforest. Uh-huh. Second Dark Ritual. Are we storming instead of Doomsday stuff? Oh no, it is just Fantasticar, and I'm going to eat 16 damage. More Dark Ritual. And I don't think Shadow Spear saves me from 32 damage across 2 turn cycles. I'm just going to double check. These things fly. Council of Reeds isn't an out. Aether Spellbomb not good enough. Yeah, no. My opener was great, but it sure wasn't the Fantasticar. GG. I can bring in some anti-Fantasticar tools. Probably Flute as well. We basically didn't see anything other than Dark Ritual and Fantasticar from my opponent here, so I don't have a ton of other information about exactly what they are doing to, like, nuance some of these flex slots. I think I'm trying to make room for a lot of stuff. I want to keep Shadow Spear to Nettle Cyst and gain enough life so that Fantasticar doesn't kill me in 2 shots. I don't know if that's realistic. Like, this would still require some cuts. Probably cut a couple of win conditions and try to rock something that looks like this. Yes. I'll just die to Fantasticar nonsense, but I don't know that I can turn down something that is as aggressive as this is. And I get a few redraws as well at some point. So there's Patchwork. I get Force of Willed immediately. Pass? Question mark? What did that pitch? It pitched a Brainstorm. And opponent ponders. I guess I can play around Daze. So do all of these. Then play the Council of Reeds. Alright. So now the next question is, do I crack baubles? If I crack them, I lose Metalcraft immediately. So I think I try to play around discard, don't crack them immediately, crack them on my opponent's turn. But just talking about the Council of Reeds, this could have been the Fantasticar, right? Fantasticar, Bauble, Bauble, Opal, 16. And I'm trying not to just, like, board out the Council of Reeds for Fantasticar every time to, like, show off this card, but, like, that's kind of the reality of trying to brew around a sweet 3-drop right now. So you have a Thoughtseize on top. I think I still crack this anyway, despite the fact that I could draw multiple expensive things and give my opponent's Thoughtseize value. Ooh, nice. Cool. There's Saga. There's a Petal. That will trigger both of these. I think I just put both of these into play. Crash in for 4. Make 2 more REEDS. The problem here is that I am at 16 life. So I just die to the Fantasticar if my opponent has it. I haven't drawn a Consign or Urkel's Recall yet. I don't need much more time. Like, I need 2 combat steps just with the Council of Reeds, let alone the Urza Saga. But if my opponent's got the combo angle, they just get it here. They have put a card on top, which I do not like. I do get another turn. Again, though, 16. Magic number, not in a good way. Another Urza Saga. Sure. So I can do the Council of Reeds. I guess use this mana to activate Urza Saga. I don't really know that it matters for waiting or not. I'm not expecting any wild damnation style cards or anything. Make 4 more REEDS. And for 8. Opponent 2/6. It looks like I'm just going to die, unfortunately. So there's a Ponder, and then there's 16 from the Fantasticar. So if we are just playing the Fantasticar ourselves in the spot where we have REEDS, I easily win this game. But that's kind of just where we are at. I am currently of the opinion that this deck is sweet, it is doing something cool, and the Dimir decks that exist in this format right now are just so generically strong. Regardless, GG's. I am enjoying this gameplay a lot. Okay, I I think I can just do better with an Ancient Tomb hand here. I'm not blessed with an Ancient Tomb hand. So this is turn 2 Patchwork Automaton, double trigger. Throw back Nettle Cyst. Try to rely on Urza Saga from there. I don't know that that's strong enough. In Emry, we trust on a very sketchy 5-card hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Edel. Some other artifact. Mox Opal. Don't force of will me. I said don't force of will me. We are playing a tempo deck, and I effectively have a 0-card hand. Life's bad. Opponent pitched Murktide Regent, so like it's very clear that they are on a Dimir tempo deck. I still have mana, which is good. Orcish Bowmasters is coming. All right, I mean, that's a big boy. Nettle Cyst. All right, big boy is in play. So that's a 4/4. My opponent can buy a decent amount of time against it, jump blocking with an Orc token and then potentially the Murktide itself. But I'm not necessarily expecting Nettle Cyst to... It's just one of those days, you know? It is just one of those days. Polluted Delta comes down. I mean... Come back? Nettle Cyst? Big? In for 5? Opponent's at 13? I have 10 power in play? There's an Atraxa in the graveyard, which I probably don't overcome if my opponent can put it into play. Yeah, I think we legitimately just lost to Undercity Sewers. Opponent is a chart a course build, by the way, which is very much not common. So I have to hope that I outscale this Atraxa, and I can't necessarily force chump blocks on Atraxa immediately. Oh, and my opponent gets Cameo Planeswalker immediately. Fantastic. I will play a Thorn. These certainly don't get to attack into Atraxa right now when they are at 1 hour less than normal due to Tameo. Tameo goes up to 6 immediately. I am taking 7 in the air, which more importantly stabilizes my opponent's life total. Skateboard would be cool, right? Skateboard, tap Atraxa, swing in for 12. Oh, yeah, sure. That's fine. Did I have a line where I just like equip Nettle Cyst and try to go wild that way? I don't know. If I force Atraxa to jump block, Atraxa just gets reanimated and my position is still terrible. Like I can equip Atraxa here, swing in. My opponent chump blocks with one of these, kills me with the other. I was so close to bringing this back here. GG's. I want this other Tormod's Crypt. I might need Dismember for things like Tameo. Or I can just play Disruptor Flute and handle it that way. Those things as chump blockers are like legitimately quite annoying. There's a lot of tension in my deck specifically because of the card Nettle Cyst. Nettle Cyst is making me want to keep in Shadow Spear because it allows me to trample over things for lethal very easily. Maybe I shouldn't play towards that niche thing. I think I'm largely just sending it again. Okay. So City, then Mox Opal, then Thorn seems solid as an opener. So yeah. That is a force effect, unfortunately. So now, not only do I not get my Thorn, but I also am further away from Mox Opal being on, which is absolutely relevant. Opponent fetches, and Thoughtseize is rather good here. I imagine that I lose Patchwork Automaton. I am wrong. So, here is Patchwork Automaton. There is a Force of Will. So I will be passing the turn there. My City of Traders is rather awkward. The fact that every Dimir deck right now just gets to be able to play this game and refuel via flow state is a little obnoxious. All right, this costs me my city, which is a disaster. But my opponent has 1 card, so this should resolve and work, and then hopefully I get to start deploying threats from my graveyard. It's just so bad if one of my opponent's 2 cards are flow state here. Not immediately, at the very least. Another problem is that I don't have Metalcraft, so Mox Opal isn't mana to help me cast Patchwork Automaton the first time. So my first turn with Emry might not actually be deploying a threat, which is rather bad. God damn it. Mox Opal, get your shit together. I think I have to take Mox Amber. And it's just a disaster if my opponent has a fair removal spell for Emry. Opponent consigns it, which is incredibly aggressive. There's a Murktide Regent that will just kill me in 3 shots. So I'm in the same position as previously, where my Mox Opals are not online. I think now I need to do Bobble. What is the card in your hand? It is a Thoughtseize, which is frustrating in trying to do Bobble redraws. So I guess I hold the other one now and do the second Bobble on my opponent's turn. Skateboard is not good here. I will go to 12. I will get Thoughtseized, and then I get to cycle this Bobble and hope that it finds me something that answers Murktide in some capacity. Opponent has a Force of Will coming if they keep that card, which I don't think they are likely to do. So redraw. Hot damn, it is an Aether Spellbomb. Is like legitimately exactly what I needed. So get Mox Amber out of graveyard, cast Mox Amber, do Aether Spellbomb, do Urza's Bobble. I think I start by seeing if my opponent is going to fetch. Alright, they do. And Surveil. Keeping a card on top. I think I crack this, see what that card is. Oh no, this is the one that looks at hand, unfortunately. Because of Orcish Bowmasters, I think I just do that. Let's bounce this Murktide out. I know this is happening. Take a redraw. It is a Council of Reeds. Opponent now brainstorms. They can recast this Murktide Regent. It's not getting them anywhere. I have Emry Spellbomb until my opponent finds a removal spell, and it's unclear how much removal they actually have. So I would like to replay that Spellbomb, I think. I just want to have that chilling in play. This turns on Metalcraft, so I can Mox Opal again. Keep this one. Play the Council of Reeds. Go to combat. Make a second Council of Reeds. Then use this last Mox Opal. And now that I have 2 of these, and I won't just, like, eat an additional card to a single spot removal spell, I can play a second Emry out. So now I have Spellbomb, Recursion with double Emry. That should stop most of my opponent's reasonable win conditions. And I think I can just attack through something like a Transform Tamiyo Planeswalker with 2 Council of Reeds already in play. Okay, yeah, you can show and tell an Archon in Saga Council of Reeds. It's just more important to have Emrys. Okay, yeah, an opponent gives it up there. Alright, GG's. We recovered from that absolutely atrocious triple Mox Opal situation, which is great. End it. I also could play, like, Dismember for Bowmasters, which gets a little better when I am on the draw. Sure. Go down 2 threats, question mark? Like, drop 2 Nettle Cysts. So this has initial graveyard hate, but otherwise doesn't do anything. I think this is just a mulligan. I would rather come out of the gates swinging, which this does. Well, air quotes, swinging. I potentially turn 1 Thorn, turn 2 Council of Reeds, or Patchwork Automaton. Regardless of how I play this out, I think I keep it and get rid of Nettle Cyst. I think it's just too likely that Nettle Cyst ends up rotting in my hand if I resolve Thorn of Amethyst. Yep. I've lost the Council of Reeds. I've picked up another land. I think I'm just going to float the Spellbomb into play immediately and give myself the space to not play City of Traders immediately on turn 1. Then I can potentially do this turn 2, followed by one of these. There's Tamiyo. Thorn into Emry, in theory, sounds kind of cool. I think I am going to go for that angle. It's just, like, very frustrating because if I do this and my opponent transforms the Tamiyo because I didn't hold up and Spellbomb, like, that sucks for me. I think I just have to play Magic, though, rather than hold open Spellbomb for Tamiyo specifically. The Tamiyo doesn't kill me, and hopefully I end up being able to power through that. Starting here, here's Patchwork Automaton. I think I play Urza's Saga, lose the City of Traders, pick up Mox Opal, and pay for it with Urza's Saga. And this scales up Patchwork Automaton. Opponent gets to draw their card. I think I will bounce Tamiyo here. I think with Thorn in play, I'm not worried about a creature getting reanimated in this exact turn cycle. All right, cool. Stressful, but we finally do put our first win up on the board. Let's see if we can get one more of these here. GG's. All right, opening hand. Borderline. I can go Seat, Lotus Petal, Thorn on turn 1. But then all 3 of these are dead in hand if I use the Lotus Petal on turn 1. So I can it could instead play Council of Reeds on turn 2. And maybe just ship this one. This is probably a stronger hand. Do I go... Actually, how do I go? I think no matter how I do it, the hand is a keep and Sink in a Stupor is the card that goes back. Opponent makes a request for more Curse Snuppy. Zaknod. Donation decklist queue is always open. It is a Tamiyo. So I could play Urza Saga immediately and work towards Pithing Needle, which I think is the angle that I'm taking. But it's not super explosive, unfortunately. In all likelihood, we have gone, I think, 5 for 5 on Underground Sea decks here. Just presuming that this is some other Dimir pile of some kind. There is a Ponder, Flooded Strand. Mox Opal is very good. Do you fucking consign in game 1? Alright, we did not go 5 for 5 on Underground Sea decks. This is disastrous. Because I was about to go Ancient Tomb, activate this, 2 artifacts, play Mox Opal, play Emry, and now I don't get to do all of that. And this is going to disappear. Alright. Do I Council of Reeds? Maybe I Council of Reeds while my opponent is tapped out. Because if this resolves, then single target removal spell doesn't answer it, which is a big deal. Great. Tundra comes back down on my opponent's turn. They get to do the whole Tamiyo Clue thing again. You have another Stifle effect. Are you going to stifle my Urza Saga search thing as well? Alright. Float mana. Oh no, they didn't. Nice. Pithing Needle. Put off Tamiyo Seasoned Scholar. Now, we'll be taking some damage here. There's Patchwork Automaton. Okay, so you had a consign and you didn't protect your Planeswalker. I'll shut up if you are about to Prismatic Ending this Pithing Needle. Here's Emry. All right, here's another Emry. The Emry-ing will continue until morale improves. Mill 4 cards. Cycle, I think. A Council of Reeds. All right. How did this shake up? Are you... Oh, no play from my opponent, including no cracking Clue token. Consign? Not immediately. I would like to cast Aether Spellbomb. I am specifically trying to play around some Thalia horse shit. And then I will Council of Reeds. And now I can bounce a Thalia out of play. And if nothing else, I cycle the Spellbomb. Okay, there's the Thalia that I played around. Get out of here. Okay, opponent has just passed the turn back. So now, is Urza Saga live? Urza Saga is live. I will now just do this Spellbomb thing. And keep that as an option. Go to combat, make 2 more copies of the Council of Reeds. Just in case. Let's just take care of that. Opponent draws a card, which is fine. Minus something like Wrath of the Skies, which my opponent doesn't have enough mana to nuke all the Council of Reeds. I don't really see how my opponent gets back into this, and I haven't done the math, but presumably they're just very, very dead to a skateboard situation. Okay, sure. I don't get a skateboard immediately, but this feels like it should be lethal. All right. I wonder if opponent punted that one. My opponent's opener was really strong, and it felt like I should have lost that game. Like, if they consign my Urza Saga search trigger, and they get to keep Tamiyo, do they win that one? Council of Reeds are way worse. I don't know, it's a totally different game. It's hard to say. But I was kind of flabbergasted by the consign and my opponent not playing around game 1 Pithing Needle. GG's, regardless. I would like Dismember for Felia specifically, and to a lesser extent, Tamiyo. And I probably need Disruptor Flute for Tamiyo. I will think about Defense Grid. We probably don't do Tormod's Crypt. I probably cut Mox Amber because I expect on average my opponent to kill my creatures. And I would need 3 more cuts if I want to bring in all of these cards. Shadow Spear feels way less important here. I will board that out. Then everything else feels important. I could go down 2 Thorns and just stay threat heavy. But the Thorn Emry openers are really, really good. Plus, I kind of want this critical density of things my opponent has to answer. They use their early resources on these, and then I start sticking stuff like this. I'm going to go down 2 Thorns. Notably, we never got paired against a non-blue deck where I would have boarded out Thorns and boarded in Fantasticar. This looks fine. I'll have to figure out exactly how I am playing it, though. Like, it varies a lot. Island Pass? I think I'm good with Island Pass. Like, the most aggressive thing I can do is just play Urza Saga immediately, but Consign potentially does very bad things to me if I do that. It's possible this hand wasn't fast enough and I should just mulligan it. Consign just kind of ruins everything that I would like to do. I could take a turn and try to Disruptor Flute it, but then, like, Felia stuff becomes very bad for me if I do that. So, like, I can play the Council of Reeds that doesn't get hit by Consign immediately, but would be hit by Swords to Plowshares the worst. Or I can play Nettle Cyst and Mox Opal, and then hope to sneak Emry in as well. Let's try that. Or no, if that doesn't work, right? Because I would have 2 artifacts. All right, let's Council of Reeds. So I will cast Mox Opal to trigger it. Yep. That was the risk. I guess in good news, it means that my opponent is not playing Felia this turn and working towards, like, Felia Riddler immediately. There is a Brainstorm. Island comes down. Opponent is passing. And straight up Disruptor Flute. Consign right now. And then attempt to resolve my cards. I don't hate that. Opponent responds with Flooded Strand, which is expected. Plays Felia in response, which is very annoying for me trying to jam Nettle Cyst in particular. I think I am still naming Consign because I have these multiple copies of Nettle Cyst. So do this. Play a Nettle Cyst. It resolves, which turns on Metalcraft or Emry. Emry mills some reasonable looking cards. So the Nettle Cysts are way worse with Felia in play. Hopefully I can set up some, like, Emry Bobble type stuff. Or just legitimately put Nettle Cyst on Emry and crash in with Emry. Felia is really good versus this Germ Token setup I've got going on here. I've potentially made it so that Consign doesn't get my Urza Saga triggers, which can be a big deal. There is Quantum Riddler, so my opponent is going to... Well, if they blink that out to keep it, I kill Felia with Nettle Cyst, which I would consider a massive win for me. So hopefully that happens. Does not happen. All right. I will take 2 swords as well. Rough. Opponent has had a really good set of tools against me here. So there's Saga. Here's the world's saddest Nettle Cyst, as the Felia is just going to nuke this token. And it may just be that, like, this blue-white blink deck being a top 5 deck of the format right now, I forget exactly where it's at, is just fully enough to not play Nettle Cyst, because this feels awful. Like, I have paid 6 mana and gotten close to 0 value. Not literally true, it kept the Quantum Riddler from remaining around, but my opponent has not had to use a card to answer 6 mana worth of stuff. And it may just be that dropping Nettle Cyst for additional Patchwork Automatons or Fantasticars or whatever might just be better. Because this is rough. I'm putting these in play under the hope that, like, Skateboard later potentially threatens a haste kill in a single shot. Like, this is just increasing my artifact count. And then there is the full mana value Quantum Riddler. Sure. So do this. pass? I think I'm going to do this and pass. My opponent could do a consign on this, but I'm kind of hoping to play Disruptor Flute at the end step. Maybe Disruptor Flute now. All right, they're blinking out their Riddler. Swords to Plowshares would cost 4 mana. It's still castable. I think I'm not going for do this on swords and then block. I don't know, maybe I still do that. Okay, there is the expensive 4 mana consign. That was exactly what I talked about here. I will now see if they have Swords to Plowshares as well. They can't cantrip into it. All right, they didn't. Great. That takes a major player out. My opponent, unfortunately, gets to return Quantum Riddler here. I have a lot of damage potentially coming here. Spell Bomb is a thing. Skateboard is a thing. Haste feels solid for next turn, assuming I don't eat Wrath of the Skies specifically. I think I am going to get Skateboard, tap down Tamiyo. I could go equip here and give haste. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That forces a chump block with the Riddler. I think I like that. Guess I can split these up so that I deal more damage like this. And this forces the chump block with Riddler while having my opponent's life total. And then next turn I have an Urza Saga token with haste. It's basically Wrath of the Skies that I care about. Yeah. Yep. I will put this bauble into play in the short term. I'm not sure if I should cash it in for a redraw immediately, because my Nettle Cyst being a 1/1 means that Felia would kill it in combat without trading, which is rather bad. That's a new Tamiyo. Alright. I will cash this in then. God damn it. That's so frustrating. Alright. I get to crash in for 3. My opponent goes to 5. I think I am now going to do this. I have a Sink and a Stupor that I could draw that could put the Triumph into my opponent's hand, rather than have it be in play immediately. Oh, and there's just Felia. Ah! What a disastrous Wrath of the Skies for me. All right. Sure. It really needed to be Wrath of the Skies there. GG. I feel like I threaded that one pretty well too, with like forcing the Riddler out of play. Yeah, this looks good. So I will keep this. So if I go Seat, Opal, Emry, that is a fine start. That's just a 1 mana Emry to kick off the game. Denied. Which is now awkward that I had to use my Mox Opal for Emry, as it won't trigger Council of Reeds. Having to worry about Stifle and Consign at every moment with basically every single one of my cards is really rough. I think I play Council of Reeds because it doesn't immediately eat it to Consign, and then next turn I'll do Urza Saga. Days! Sure. That island comes back down. Now here's Urza Saga. Here is a Nettle Cyst that potentially eats a Consign. Yeah. How many of those consigns you got over there? I will let this Spell Bomb chill in play. Opponent brainstorms. There's definitely some tension of, do I just play out this next Urza Saga? It's just disastrous if I do and my opponent has Wrath of the Skies. Same with this Seat, I suppose. Alright. I think I'm just going to do this and pass. Opponent fetches a Surveil land. Do I eat Wrath of the Skies immediately? Cool. I will draw a card. It is a Skateboard. I lose 3 of my lands and Mox Opal. I now don't have the mana to cast that, which is terrible. I'm going to put this in play so that I can potentially draw a land next turn and make an Urza Saga token and then attack with haste. My opponent's tools are pointed at the Fantasticar, and they just happen to wreck me as well. Pass? Basically, every line that I take all game plays around one thing and walks directly into another in a very bad way. So, like, for example, I want to hold this Lotus Petal to play with Council of Reeds, but if my opponent plays Felia and then attacks, I want my Urza Saga to be a 3/3. And if I play this out and then my opponent just has another Wrath of the Skies, I lose one more permanent that would allow me to cast the Council of Reeds. I think I'm not going in with Skateboards. I think I want to hold this as a blue mana source. Opponent Brainstorms. Has another Tundra. Has Riddler. Elia blinks Riddler. Your last card, Swords, too. Alright, it's not their last card. They've got 3 cards, but like it being a Swords is very, very bad for me. Yeah! This is incredibly frustrating. Another Council of Reeds, and I don't have anything in hand to trigger them. Alright, do this. I think get Mox Opal. I don't know, I'm about to just lose this Construct token to the Thalia attack, and there's nothing I can do about this with these resources. So maybe it just needs to be a bobble so that I can redraw and try to spiral the game with Council of Reeds, but like those are tokens too for Thalia purposes. I think I just need to rip a Dismember. Like I can attack with Skateboard here, deal my opponent 5-ish damage. There's another Riddler coming. Marsh Flats comes down. There's Riddler. I think at this point my opponent can just attack, trade with a Construct token, and just have 2 Riddlers in play. Yeah. Life's bad. Ancient Tomb is also one of my lands here, so I can't tap Ancient Tomb again, or I die to double Quantum Riddler. And Dismember is not going to be valid to get rid of those either, given where my life... and Murktide. Yeah, absolutely. You've got it. This is a 1-4 league. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. This is a very well-constructed deck that is just not powerful enough for Fantasticar Legacy, I think. We don't outrace the Fantasticar decks, and we don't outgrind the Tamiyo Flow State decks, leaving us in a very awkward position overall. And as we saw in the last round, if people are gunning for the Fantasticar with things like an entire playset of consigns, sometimes in the main deck, being the Nettlecyst, Patchwork Automaton, Urza, Saga deck leaves you in a very awkward place where you get hit by a lot of splash damage. When the Fantasticar gets banned, this is a deck that I would love to revisit. I think adding Patchwork Automaton to the deck was a very, very good idea. I have mixed feelings about City of Traders, where City of Traders plus Lotus Petal specifically is something that lets you play Council of Reeds on turn 1. And like there is something to just trying to shove that card on turn 1 as consistently as possible. It may be that you want one more Patchwork Automaton here, a couple of Fantasticars over Nettlecyst, but like that's still running into the same hate cards, right? Like the Consigns and Stifles and whatnot are still going to be very good against you, so that doesn't actually solve that problem. There is cool design space being explored here of trying to be the 0-cost artifact deck that also can just shove Thorn. And Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, Thorn, Emry lines were super sick. I enjoyed those a lot. If you give up playing Council of Reeds as quickly as possible and you drop City of Traders for more blue sources, the other Nettlecysts could become Pinnacle Emissaries. But at that point, like, is what you are doing better than what 8-cast is doing? And 8-cast isn't even particularly a deck that is performing well right now. And it has counterspells that we don't to help protect its stuff or stop opposing combos. I think I improved the deck from what was submitted to me by the CEO of IKEA. The Sink into Stupor was actively good. The Patchwork Automatons were great. If we drop Nettlecyst from the deck, in theory, Shadow Spear is something that could be maybe moved to the sideboard. Skateboard was a very good add to the deck. I'm very glad that I added that. With Nettlecyst, in addition to like the Thalia Brazen Borrower type stuff being rather good against it, you sometimes want to take baubles out of play rather than hold them in play, and Nettlecyst makes you want to hold them more. This is a fun puzzle. This is a really cool deck. I do like this one a lot, despite like the negative record today and my frustration in the last round. Like if my opponent just doesn't have Wrath of the Skies in one of those games, we just very cleanly win, right? It was a little difficult to sideboard with this deck. I think I also improved the sideboard overall. Like I absolutely was fishing for Dismembers versus Thalia in particular, and we didn't run into any Collector Oof decks today. But like that feels like an important tool. but it may be that like something like Defense Grid that is just kind of generic isn't strong enough. I boarded it in a few times. This feels like the sort of pet project that like you could play 20 leagues with, get it to a really, really reasonable spot for a brew. But we're only a couple weeks away from the next BNR update where presumably the Fantasticar exits the format, and this might be the sort of thing that I would love to give a shot again. So, CEO of IKEA, I hope you keep working on this one. I hope you are not discouraged by the results of this video, because we did a lot of powerful things relatively quickly, and we played a lot of good games of Magic today. And for a brew, especially something like going off the deep end with something like this, I think that is a success. So good luck in tightening up the list a little bit. Folks, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. I'm going to go make myself a moderately fancy lunch and then get back to work. Alrighty, have a good day. See ya.